when I envisioned doing farming, I never envisioned doing it by myself. That was the sort of like agreement that I'd made with myself in doing business or starting a business. Was like, I'm not doing this on my own. Like, there's a second person that's keeping me accountable and also taking a second sort of like hand in terms of, like coordinating, looking over things, really understanding like what are some of our cost benefits, pros or cons. So that was a really huge component in starting the farm, was working with someone who also was interested in wanting to do farming as well. I mean, there was never really a process, and there's like no material out there as to like how do you formalize a partnership with someone that you have absolutely no relationship with. Well, I guess the way that we met, I met Dilip was through, my work as working in through a nonprofit. He had reached out. Dilip, who's my business partner, was able to, find an interest in finding someone that would do some work with him and his property where we currently farm. And after several attempts of not hearing back from several folks when it was posted, my business partner reached out to me to be like, hey, would you be interested in taking this on, given the expertise and knowledge that you have to doing this? And so that's how me and Dilip ended up meeting. So there was there were several conversations of like 2 to 2.5 months of back and forth around like what we both envisioned in terms of starting this farm. I think my background would be that I'd been farming for close to 10 years in various different capacities, from like micro farming and gardening to working as a farmhand on several other small operations, and then eventually working in the nonprofit cycle of like technical assistance. So there was like several sort of like avenues for me within the ag that allowed me to bring my strongest suit, which was organizing and farm work experience. In terms of Dilip, my business partner, I think his background, was more from a capital component of being able to own and have this property that we were working on. And his background is mainly in technology. He comes from Silicon Valley. He does mainly in the tech industry, doing work around that. And so he also had an interest in wanting to learn more about farming, and he has a background through his ancestral roots of farming as well. And so I think he came in with the idea of wanting to like tap into this one area of his life that he thought important, and hoping to sort of like delve deeper of like what that might look like. So I think that there's these strong suits. I mean, Dilip also has master's in business, and so he comes really strongly with like the business admin component as well. I think there was some easefulness due to like Dilip's, who's my business partner's, experience of like getting businesses up and going as a small up and coming farm or operation. So that was easeful of like really leaning on his expertise of knowing how that happens. I think in terms of like the laborious work that needs to be done, it's always a hard one because it's not hard. It's not easy work, right? There's a lot of trying to prep, trying to get the resources, trying to get the funding or the money to pay for things that are sort of just, they're like, you can't really compromise on it. They just have to happen in order for that farm operation to actually be able to function, right? Like, you can't run a farm if there's no fencing around the property. You can't not have a tractor if you're trying to work 5 acres. Right? It's just like not something, I mean, that you can do it, sure, but you're gonna run into a lot of challenges from the get-go. And I think that in itself can be really challenging as well. It's like who is capable, and also on who's willing to do it, but also feel like they're not fully responsible for it if you're in partnership with someone who's willing to work with you as a part of the operation. Like, yeah, one can do the admin side and one can do just the farming, but there's that one point where there's going to be a tipping point where it feels like more of the farm labor work ends up being a lot heavier than the admin work on that side, right? So it's like you didn't get into farming to just do the laborious side. You have to find a balance where your partner is also working with you to make that happen, so the operation can be successful. It doesn't just fall on one or the other. I don't think so. I think it's like an ongoing, like living document of figuring out what that looks like, because it's constantly shifting. And I think farming in general is sort of like a living thing that's constantly allowing you to pivot daily. It's never, it's not linear. So being able to understand that and come to acceptance of being flexible, and yeah, kind of just being able to adapt to that is going to be a huge benefit. But if you're really set on like what your 9-to-5 job is like giving you in the past, that's not what farming is about. Farming is about like you're gonna have to adapt today and then again tomorrow. And that's just how it is. And you just gotta be able to pivot quickly. I mean, the farm we've broken even in the past few years. We've only been in operation for 3. We're going into our 4th. In terms of like roles, like surely like my role as someone who has a lot of expertise around farming, what needs to happen, that kind of falls on me. And in terms of like marketing and like admin stuff where it has to do with like bank statements, taxes, just business admin and emailing, kind of falls mainly more on my business partner. But there are some crossovers, whereas like the marketing and the business admin, like emailing and stuff like that, sort of also fall on me. So it is like there isn't like a black and white between those two. There is like a lot of like gray area where there's interweaving both of our roles. But I have noticed that a lot of that laborious work does fall on me. It can be taxing. It is nice to have someone who can kind of level up to the same amount if like I'm needing to like take a break for someone to like step in and like move forward. And I think that we're still trying to figure that out. I think having really clear expectations, have it be written down. I know that we have an operating agreement, and in some of that there is some clear details, but there are like nuanced details, and you can't foretell in the future either, and like as two things are having to pivot and change, but you can at least have some forethought and some wiggle room to like, as that document is a living document, to like be able to like amend those as things come up, and making sure that everyone is still in this for the right reason with their roles and expectations around like what needs to work for this sort of farm operation to be functional in its longevity. And if those aren't clear from the get-go, what's going to happen is, lots of disagreements, lots of headaches, and maybe even miscommunications around what people are wanting or needing from running an operation. So I clearly advise like sitting down, writing things all together from whoever the partnerships may be, and being clear that there's room for things to be added and being removed as we're moving forward.